Vishnupada Parihumsakacharya Ashtottara Shata Srimad Abhay Charanaravindra Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki, Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, प्रेम से कहो जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. So, welcome to the morning Bhagavatam class. Today we are reciting the verses from the Canto 3, chapter 26, the title Fundamental Principles of Material Nature, and the verse numbers 25 and 26. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll recite text 25. Sahasra Sirsham Sakshad. Please repeat with me. Yeah. Sahasra Sirsham Sakshad. Yam Anantam Prachakshate. Sankarshanakyam Purusham. Bhutindriya Manomayam. Sahasra Sirsham Sakshad. Yam Anantam Prachakshate. Sankarshanakyam Purusham. Bhutindriya Manomayam. Sahasra Sirsham Sakshad. Yam Anantam Prachakshate. Sankarshanakyam Purusham. Bhutindriya Manomayam. Prabhuji. Yam Anantam Prachakshate. Sankarshanakyam Purusham. Bhutendriya Manomayam. Sahasra Sirsham Sakshad. Yam Anantam Prachakshate. Sankarshanakyam Purusham. Matendriya Manomayam. Sahasra Sirsham Sakshad. Yam Anantam Prachakshate. Sankarshanakyam Purusham. Bhutendriya Manomayam. So, word to word meaning. Sahasra Sirsham, with 1,000 heads. Sakshat, directly. Yam, whom. Anantam, Ananta. Prachakshate, they all. Sankarshanakyam, Sankarshana by name Purusham. Sankarshana by name by name. Purusham, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhuta, the gross elements. Indriya, the senses. Manamayam, consisting of the mind. Translation and purport by His Grace Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Please repeat with me. The threefold ahankara, the source of gross elements, the senses and the mind, is identical with them because it is their cause. It is known by the name of Sankarshana, who is directly Lord Ananta with 1,000 heads. So I'll read text 26 and purport. Kartrutvam karanatvam cha kartavyam cheti lakshanam shanta ghora vimodatvam iti vasyad ahankrute. What to what meaning? Kartrutvam, being the doer, karanatvam, being the instrument, cha, and kartavyam, karyatvam, being the effect, cha, also, iti, thus, lakshanam, characteristic, santa, serene, ghora, active, vimudatvam, being dull, iti, thus, va, or, syat, maybe, ahankrite, of the false ego. Translation. The false ego is characterized as the doer, as an instrument, and as an effect. It is further characterized as serene, active, or dull, according to how it is influenced by the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Purport. I will read, just follow this. Just listen it. Yeah. Purport. Ahankara or false ego is transformed into the demigods, the controlling directors of the material affairs. As an instrument, the false ego is represented as a different senses and sense organs. And as the result of combination of the demigods and the senses, the material objects are produced. In the material world, we are producing so many things, and this is called advancement of civilization. But factually, the advancement of civilization is manifestation of the false ego. By false ego, all material things are produced as objects of enjoyment. One has to cease increasing artificial necessities of the form of material objects. One great Acharya, Narottama Das Thakur, has lamented that when one deviates from pure consciousness of Vasudeva or Krishna consciousness, he becomes entangled in material activities. The exact words he uses, Sat Sangachadi Kainu Asate Vilasa Te Karanya Lagila Ye Karma Banda Panasa. I have given up the pure status of consciousness because I wanted to enjoy in the temporary material manifestation. Therefore, I have been entangled in the network of actions and reactions. Let's do Mangalacharan. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadate Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamsya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyasya Krupa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Runda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome once again. So we are continuing the chapter, the fundamental principles of material nature, and Kapila Muni is explaining the Sankhya philosophy, in which he is explaining the material nature, how this material world is created, what are the various ingredients, how the interaction is happening between different entities, and he's continuing that, and we are continuing this chapter today as well. So mainly the Kapila Muni was explaining how the Purusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and how the Jiva, how Prakriti, along with the time and karma, how these all are interacting with each other and producing variety of material elements, senses, sense organs, and many other things it is producing. So how this interaction is happening, the Kapila Muni was explaining. If you remember, if in the Bhagavad Gita also, when we are starting the Bhagavad Gita chapters reading Bhagavad Gita, in the beginning it was mentioning like Bhagavad Gita covers same thing, the Ishvara, Prakriti, Jiva, Kala, and Karma. The Bhagavad Gita also describes these chapters, these topics. And here the Kapila Muni is also, as part of Sankhya philosophy, he is describing in terms of the material nature. Bhagavad Gita is more wider, different yogas it covered, but in the introduction we get to know what exactly Bhagavad Gita is covering. Same way, here in the Kapila Muni, he is also explaining the Sankhya Yoga, Sankhya philosophy, and which explains the interaction between the Purusha, the Mahavishnu, is glancing the material world, and then how the Jiva is transformed, how the Jiva and the different entities are getting transformed by the influence of this Kala, Purusha, and so this is how we are continuing. But we last few weeks we have been discussing that this material, the matter in this material nature, it's a dull. On its own, it doesn't have any ability, any energy. But when it comes under the influence of Supreme Personality of Godhead, in this case Mahavishnu, and when through his energy, the material energy, there is again what is the material source of material energy is again Krishna. So when the material energy under the influence of Supreme Lord, it interacts and it's producing various entities. So on its own, matter doesn't have any ability. The material nature, it doesn't have any capacity to produce anything, but with the influence of Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is producing. The analogy we can take, anything is like, take any in the material analogy we can take is iron or the steel. So when you see the iron or steel, on its own, you can't see, we are using iron in so many places, like in the construction industry, many places we use iron. We make different shapes from the iron. But how that is happening? Taking the iron rod and making it to different shapes, how it is happening? Before that, they heat the iron. Right? They will put it on, they will burn the iron, they will make heat, and in the heat, they will make into different shapes under the heat. Right? Same thing. The material nature is also on its own, it's not having any ability, but when it comes into the contact with the supreme energy, then it is getting transformed and it is producing into different energy, material elements. And in the previous classes also we have discussed, right? So when the Supreme Personality, there is a Pradhana is there, where unmanifested form of material nature, Pradhana, and when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purusha, Mahavishnu, is glancing the material nature. Then when it is glancing the material nature, we have been discussing from past few weeks and everybody is explaining this. So we briefly touch on it, we don't go in the detail, but when the Supreme Mahavishnu is glancing the material world, he will induce the living entities into the material nature. And along with the material living entities, he will induce Kala. And along with the Kala, he will induce Karma and the Swabhava, impressions from the previous. So all these things. But in the initial stage, the three modes of material nature are inactive. But when that is called Pradhana. But after glancing is done by Mahavishnu, when the time is introduced, then the reaction starts. Initially, there was no mode, the modes are, three modes are inactive, but after this glance, the modes became active. Then after some time, the predominant nature will be the mode of goodness. So that is called, that stage is called Mahatattva stage. And after some time, the mode of passion will be predominant. That state is called Suchatattva. And then finally, the mode of ignorance will become predominant. That is called Ahankara stage. Ahankara stage is the one where that is called false ego. And under the false ego, Ahankara, with a combination of mode of ignorance, mode of passion, and mode of goodness, it will produce different elements, different sense objects, and different senses, mind, intelligence, everything will be created with this combination. So, but this Ahankara stage is the one. In this today's verse, it is explaining what is the source. In the 25th verse, it was mentioning what is the Ahankara. The source of Ahankara is Sankarshan, Ananta, the thousand heads, the Supreme Lord. Ananta is the main source of the Ahankara. So now, suddenly we got the word. Previously we were discussing about Mahavishnu's glancing the material nature. But now suddenly, in this verse today, it was introduced, Sankarsana is mentioned. Like now, we try to understand different expansions of Krishna in this context, so that where exactly Mahavishnu is fitting in the creation, where the Sankarsana is coming, how these things are set up in the overall cosmic manifestation. If you want to understand that, just better we'll briefly touch on the expansions of Krishna leading to the material creation. We don't discuss all other Leela avataras, Purusha avataras, Guna avataras. We don't discuss all those things. But leading to material creation, just we'll have a glance of what are all the expansions of Krishna. That will give an idea where the Sankarsana is fitting in this process. So if you see, we all know, from the Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter, we know the Aham Sarvasva Prabhavo Matta Sarvam Pravaktate Iti Matva Bhajantema Bodha Bhava Samanvidam. Krishna is saying, I am the source of both material and spiritual world, Supreme Personality of Krishna. All things are emanating from me. So Krishna is saying I am the source of everything, both material and spiritual world. And the next verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, third chapter, this is the Paribhasha Sutra of Srimad Bhagavatam. Means the whole summary of Srimad Bhagavatam we can understand from this verse. Ete chamsa kalapumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Nayam Ugayanti Yuge Yuge. So this Krishna is the Ete chamsa kalapumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This verse was spoken by Sukadeva Goswami. In the context before that, he was explaining various incarnations of Krishna. So after explaining various incarnations, he is saying Krishna is the main Bhagavan. He is the original God. From there, all the incarnations, everything emanating. So in this context also, Krishna is always the Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the Bhagavan Swayam. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is on the top, fountainhead of all the incarnations, whatever we are seeing in this world, both in the spiritual world and this material world. Whatever incarnations happening, he is the origin. He is the main person, fountainhead, we can say. So now from Krishna, the next expansion comes Balaram. So Balaram is the next expansion, and Balaram is like Balaram is the difference is like this is, Bhagavan is also Supreme Personality of Balaram is also Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he is in the mode of servant. He is always serving the Krishna. That's why Balaram is a Sevak Bhagavan, Krishna is a Sevya Bhagavan. So who is receiving the seva is a Krishna, who is providing the service is Balaram. So that is how the difference between Sevak Bhagavan and Sevya Bhagavan. And the next from Balaram, 4 Chaturvyuhas comes. Chaturvyuhas. 4 Chaturvyuhas. Yeah, and that is Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh. These are again it was in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. It was explained detailed description about these Chaturvyuhas, what exactly they are doing. But we will not touch into that. This is not our main topic, so we will not deviate from the topic. So these 4 Chaturvyuhas come. So Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And from these, from the next level is the Narayana comes. And from Narayana, again second Chaturvyuha comes. That is again Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshan, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. So this Chaturvyuhas again. So that is again Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniradha. And from this Sankarshan, Mahavishnu comes. And that Mahavishnu is the one who is glancing the material nature and inducing all the living entities. And from there, the Mahatattva material creation begins. Mahatattva is active, the material nature is activated, and all the various material ingredients are being created. So, and this Sankarshana, who is the source of Mahavishnu, is also here. It is the same Sankarshan being referred. In this verse, he is the representation of he is the source of Ahankara. He is the predominant deity of Ahankara. Which this is what it is mentioned in the 25th verse. So I think now at least if it is a diagram, we can easily represent, but it's an explanation. So the imagination, one level is Krishna, the next level is Balram, and then Balram 4 Chaturvyuhas coming. Under the Bhavan, again after Chaturvyuhas, Narayan is there. From Narayan, again 4 Chaturvyuhas. From the Sankarshan of the Chaturvyuhas, Mahavishnu is coming. From Mahavishnu, all the material creation starts. From the Mahavishnu, when he glances material nature, then Mahavishnu exhales, all the universes comes. From there, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu enters into each universe. And then when the Mahavishnu creates when Brahma is creating the living entities, for each of the living entity, Kshirodakashaya Vishnu enters as a super soul. So this is how the material creation, the setup is done in relation to the whole process. Now, I think, various elements, I think people may be getting doubt. Why these many? Krishna is the one. Why can't Krishna create everything? Like, why these many incarnations? People may be getting doubt, right? But we don't have the proper explanation. But I give a material analogy using which we can understand how this material world, by seeing one example in material world, we can understand. Suppose we are having the country, like Australia is a country. Prime Minister is there, right? He is the main person. He is responsible for everything. But next, under the Prime Minister, there will be different ministers will be there. And different, like one minister is for defense, one ministry is for education, one ministry for trade, one ministry is for all other different portfolios, right? Different. Now, is the Prime Minister is not doing everything at the ground level. Even ministers are also not doing at the ground level, right? Minister is also responsible at the high level. He will be having some control, but at the ground level, he will be having the different officials, bureaucrats will be there, right? They will be executing. Again, bureaucrats also, they will not do everything. Again, under them, they will have the different employees will be there. They will be. So if you see the hierarchy, but when you see Krishna is but Prime Minister is the responsible, is the head of the country, right? But he doesn't do everything on the ground level. He will manage, oversee the things. He will guide. He will control everything. But he is the in charge. He is the responsible. But under him, they will. Similarly, suppose if you are, that is how we can. Another thing is, on top of this, we can add one more example. Suppose you are having a child, and then if he turns 3 or 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, then he will start putting him in a preschool, right? If you are living in a suburb, you will, nearby your suburb, you will have, you don't need to create your own school, or you don't need to create any employ your teachers, anything, right? The system is created such that you will have a nearby suburb, you will having a preschool. Then once he joins preschool, he completes the initial preschool study, then he will move on to primary school. Again, the setup is there. The primary school, government is done. The education department has done all these things in the right. So primary school, you will come, you do the primary school's education, and then you will move on to high school. From the high school, you go to university, or you, instead of going university, you want to do different courses. So all the setup is done so that all the people in the country can have the proper system. They don't need to invent anything new. They don't need to do anything on their own. All these, they need to use the resources available in the society. With the government support, various ministries are there, Prime Minister is there, different ministries are there. They did all the setup. Suppose if you are going to the school, you have to go by bus. The transport department is there, right? They will provide the buses. So all these different, the head is Prime Minister, but Prime Minister is not providing the buses. He is not driving the bus, right? There will be different employees. Same structure we can apply, the same logic we can apply. Krishna is the fountainhead. He will be expanding differently, in different incarnations, like different ministers in the portfolio under him. But when Krishna is doing all these material activities, he will not be in contact with material nature directly. That is where all the demigods will. He will last week we were discussing when Mahavishnu glancing the material nature, right? But he does not directly contact the material nature. That glance is translated into Rudra, Sadashiva. And that Sadashiva interacting with Maya, Durga Devi, then all the material creation. Is at the ground level, the different demigods, everything, the ground level staff will be taking care. But on the top level, he is the controller. So this is how we can understand how this fits into our, when we take the material example, how the various portfolios in the ministers are there, how Prime Minister is working, the same logic you can apply to understand. It's not exactly, this is an analogy we can use to get it more clear on why the different incarnations of Krishna are there, right? So this is how the different incarnations and the leading to material creation. Now, when moving on to the next 26th verse. So in this verse, the further discussion was done on relation to how the living entity is impacted by this ahankara. Ahankara means false ego. What is the false ego? Like actual our position is we are the spirit soul, we are the servant of Krishna. We are part and parcel of Krishna, and we are eternal spirit soul. Our aim is to serve Krishna. That is the actual our position. False ego means, the ahankara means false ego. What is false ego means? You are identifying yourself as a body. You are the enjoyer of this body. That is called false ego. So you are forgetting your original position as a spirit soul. You are servant of Lord. You are forgetting that, but you are identifying. False ego means you are getting the incorrect as a conception of I am this body, I am the enjoyer. That is what you are forgetting your original position. This is called false ego. This is called ahankara. So in the Bhagavad Gita 50th chapter, we have the verse Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishto matta smriti jnanam apoha namcha. Right? So Krishna was saying that I am sitting in the heart of everyone and he is the cause of smriti, means remembrance, jnana, knowledge, and apohanam, forgetfulness. So Krishna he is the Supreme Lord is there in our heart. He is causing this forgetfulness. Like not only for he is a knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. We all have this, right? Certain things we read and we remember nicely, and certain things we forget. Sometimes we study more to get the knowledge. All these qualities, who is the source, who is the behind it, but again here also it is Sankarshan. He is the main source because of his that is another how this is connected, because we are having the false ego. We are forgetting our original identity, right? How we are forgetting our original identity? The Sankarshan is the main predominant deity for mode of ignorance and false ego. He is the source of this deity. And when the jiva is having free will, so he wanted to forget, then Sankarshan is enabling that functionality. If you are interested in, you don't want to forget Krishna, you want to serve Krishna, he will empower you to do that. If you want to forget Krishna, he will enable you to. It's all our free will, our choice is we are choosing that option to forget Krishna, and Sankarshan is enabling he is the source of, he is the embodiment of ignorance and false ego. So he is empowering you to forget. So this is how the Sankarshan is playing key role in our in the material world, whether it's based on our free will. If you are choosing towards forgetting Krishna, he will enable. If you want to remember Krishna, even if you want to know more about Krishna, knowledge, he will empower. So in the purport of the 26th verse, it was mentioned, Prabhupada, in the material world, we are producing so many things, and this is called advancement of civilization. But factually, the advancement of civilization is manifestation of the false ego. By false ego, all material things are produced as objects of enjoyment. So, in this material world, we are producing so many things. But what is the aim of those material objects? It's to please our senses, to fulfill our desires. Example. But before that, taking example, that's what Prabhupada mentioning, the civilization is talking about the thing. We are producing so many, and this is called advancement of civilization. So we are thinking that by producing various things, big buildings, so many advancement in science and technology, we are claiming it as a civilization. But what is the ultimate, in the material sense, what exactly we are doing? We are fulfilling our desires, our sense, we are fulfilling the desires of our senses. But actually, that is not. Prabhupada is mentioning what is the civilization? Civilization is nothing but person moving towards perfection. That is called, but what is that perfection? If further elaborated, like improving your social condition and improving your economical condition, and then focusing on bhakti, do your devotion, finally go back to Godhead. That is actually the civilization. Civilization should help you to involve in bhakti, improve your social conditions, economic conditions, and then improve your everything. Then when you are all have the good things, surroundings are good, you don't have any other disturbances in terms of economy, then you will focus on your bhakti, and bhakti leads to go back to, you will back to Godhead. That is what Prabhupada was giving, that this is called a civilization. So another thing we can do, when we have the Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, right? So in our Vedic philosophy this is mentioned. What does it mean? So Dharma, when you do proper Dharma, the activities, you will get Artha, means the money you will get. With the Artha, you will fulfill all your material desires. But when you fed up with this Kama, the desires, then you will be looking for the Moksha. Moksha in this instance, it is impersonal liberation. But in the same context, we can say, when the Dharma, Artha, Kama fulfilled, we will be involved in bhakti, the devotion, and then we will be going back to Godhead. That is where the civilization, that is the civilization which will help you to understand Krishna, is taking you back to Krishna. That is the actually civilization. Not fulfilling our material desires. That is not the civilization. That is not the advancement of civilization. Advancement of civilization is when you keep Krishna in the center. That is the civilization. But when minus Krishna, if you take out Krishna, do whatever other things, that is not a civilization. So everything, he is in the center, but you do all other activities. That is a civilization. And in Vedas also, in Bhagavad Gita, it was mentioned, Vedesha sarvam aham eva vedyo, right? What is the purpose of Vedas? Knowing Krishna, right? So that's what the Krishna Vedas mentioning, how to understand Krishna, how to get close to Krishna, how to go back to Godhead. This is the purpose of Vedas. This is what whatever instructions we follow to know Krishna, to understand Krishna, to go back to Krishna, those activities are like actually that is called Vedic civilization. That is actually the correct civilization. The whatever so-called advancement civilization, it's only purely material enjoyment and fulfilling the material desires. And Prabhupada mentioned actually in multiple lectures and purports, he was mentioning what is the goal of civilization is janma karma chame divyam evam yo vyeti tattvata tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mamso arjuna. So the civilization of the goal of civilization is understanding transcendental activities of Krishna's birth, Krishna's activities. That should be the goal of our civilization. And further he expanded. We have the word sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam raja, right? So the civilization which helps you to achieve the surrender, leave everything, surrender unto Krishna. That is called civilization. This is what the Prabhupada explained about the civilization. The whatever we are calling so-called advancement in civilization, that is not the civilization. Civilization is the one which makes you to surrender to Krishna, which helps you to understand the Krishna's birth, Krishna's activities, and which helps you to take forward towards Krishna. That is called actual civilization. But now, in the material advancement, in the so-called material advancement, what are we doing? Like we try to create big buildings. If you go to Sydney CBD, you will see very big, tall buildings we can see. And it's nothing wrong in that. It's infrastructure, it is required. But that should not be the whole purpose of our aim, right? So, but like when you go, like sometimes in the big buildings, they do, the big buildings are created to provide the comforts to us, right? People will go there and work and they will get money and they will use the money to fulfill their needs and desires. But nothing wrong in that. But suppose sometimes what will happen? It's a big thing. We will take it as a big luxurious item. Sometimes in the companies, what they do, every 3 months, 6 months, they do fire safety drills. And what they do, when they do fire safety drills, what they do, you cannot use the lift when the drills are happening. Because in the real time when the fires breaks in the building, then you cannot use the lift, right? What will happen? People have to, when they do the exercise mock drill, they call, and they do all the fire mock drill, people who are in the top 40th floor, they have to come down through steps, right? So this is, we try to create the luxurious things, but sometimes it is always not luxurious. It will not keep you happy. It will also create problem, right? And sometimes that is what, creating the buildings is there, but it is not always positive. Sometimes we'll have negative things as well. And scientists and doctors are trying to make people immortal and increasing the lifespan. But ultimate aim is what? We are trying to increase the lifespan to meet our enjoyment. If we live more, we can enjoy more. That is the objective. Right? But in the recently, we were following that His Holiness Kadamba Kannan Swami Maharaj departure, right? Maharaj was telling, like, death is nothing but I am going for a different service. He's not caring whether we are in this body or the next body. What he was his mode, okay, this body I'm finishing, I'm moving to the next body, I will do other service. That is the mindset. That is the devotee things. But in the material world, what we are doing? We are trying to increase the lifespan. We are trying to become immortal. The objective is not to please Krishna's senses, rather pleasing our senses. That is the difference. And people are trying to go to different planets. That is also happening. So these are all material advancements. What is happening? It is happening only to fulfill our material desires. And what is the underlying reason? We are trying to satisfy senses. As discussed, that is because of our ahankara. And ahankara is again false ego. That is where, and the sankarsana is the reason. And why is giving all these facilities, giving the option to people to create? Because we are having the minute independence. Jiva is having minute independence. That independence we are trying to use to please our senses. But the other option is to please our Krishna's senses. But rather than doing our Krishna's senses, we are trying to fulfill our senses. That is what happening. But in this world, majority of the people are doing this. Then we think that, okay, majority of the people are doing this, we think this is correct and everyone is following. But there are few set of people, they are doing, they are working to not to please their senses, but to please Krishna's senses. I'll take few examples, and before winding up the class, it's already 8:43, but recently in our ISKCON community, we have various farms. Like now here we have the Gokul farm, and in Murulamba we have, and India also, there are multiple farms we have established. Worldwide there were. Like in the month of December, I visited India, and I went to one farm. It was my spiritual master, His Holiness Bhaktirasam Swami. He lives in Karnataka, Belgaum. And there, they are constructing one eco village. And that eco village, it's like 400 acres of forest area. The project was running from long years, almost 10 years. Now it reached one state. It's not completed, but it reached a state where people are living. What kind of lifestyle they are having there, you can see, they don't use any electricity. Like they live a complete Vedic style, they live. They don't use any electricity, they use castor oil and many other oils as a lamp in the night time, and no electricity. And they construct the houses, buildings, and not big buildings, but the small houses with the limestone and the mud. And all those things, limestone is again, they make the limestone there itself. They don't bring anything outside. And they produce all the organic thing, rice, vegetables, fruits, everything. And the water is also, they supply water everywhere with all the fields and farms. And the water is like when they use water supply. I was thinking that when we went there, the sprinklers are working and sprinkling the water on the fields. And I was thinking that due to electricity, they are operating that sprinklers. But they said, no electricity. It's mainly purely based on the gravity. They set up everything such that no electricity. And they are all the water catchment areas, everything they are digging, and they're not using any modern equipment, anything. So they're gradually constructing, they're slowly building, but the main objective of this is, living in a Vedic style is, where the main objective is to create the environment. That way the environment is very sattvic environment, very peaceful, calm, it's very soothing to mind. It will be like when you sit there and you will feel very relaxed. That is the atmosphere we need to progress in our spiritual life. And not only that, the Prabhu was explaining, if you spend less time on our material needs, focus more on devotion. You spend very less time. That's why they are not going to big things. They are doing everything. Even cooking also, they do on wooden, like in olden style India they used to cook. Like all the wood and many other things with chula they call. So with that they cook everything. And so everything, they are not using any modern day equipment, nothing. Everything it's like a Vedic style. So the purpose is simple living, high thinking. That is the concept. Means spend less time on your material needs and spend more time on material spiritual thing. That is the objective. And recently I heard of one more similar thing in India only, in a southern state called Andhra Pradesh, and there is a village called Kurma village. That village was constructed by the disciples of His Holiness Bhaktivikas Swami Maharaj. And there also, the person who was working, one of the main disciples of that village is he was working in an IT company, Infosys in India. And he worked for so many years and he left. And under the guidance of his spiritual master, His Holiness Bhaktivikas Swami Maharaj, they started Kurma village. There also it's the same. They constructed all the houses based on the Vedic style. They don't use any modern day equipment. And the morning, 3:30 they wake up, everyone, whoever is in that village, it's I think 10 families or 6-7 families living with their family, kids, everything. They attend Mangalarti every morning and they do all the morning program. After the 8:30, kids will go to study all the scriptures, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita and everything. And afternoon, kids will involve in learning all the activities like whatever is required to build that village, like farming, carpentry work, agriculture, everything kids will be learning along with the scriptures. That's it. That is their lifestyle. So it's like we think that in the material, like imagine 1 minute we cannot imagine without electricity in the Sydney. If you are living, if you see electricity is off for 1 minute or 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you will feel so many things. Okay, everything is stopped. Like that's what you feel, right? There in people, they're completely following the Vedic style and the living, in the like simple living, high thinking philosophy, and spend less time on material needs, but more on spiritual growth. So that is their idea. So why I'm telling this is, in the material world, majority of the people are entangled in the moving into the material, fulfilling the material desires. Every activity, whatever they do, they are focusing on fulfilling the material desires. Since we are in the country, situation like the democracy we call, where majority people, whatever they do, we follow. But in this instance, majority people are involved in sense enjoyment. We think that is correct. But there are some sect of people who strictly follow the Vedic style and Vedic injunctions, and they lead the life. That is the simple living, high thinking, follow there. So we should take the role model of that kind of style to advance in your civilization and advance in our spirituality. So I would like to stop here. Any comments? Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhu. Mm-hmm. The threefold. The threefold ahankara, the source of gross elements, the senses and the mind. The source of gross elements is identical with them because it is, in what context it is, let me into the word. Yeah, maybe because different elements are coming, he is the source of in that context he might be using the identical, but not I am not very clear on in which context the word identical being used here. But maybe elements are like identical elements, like some different senses. That could be the context, Prabhu. Because when from from when the ahankara stage, ahankara interacts with the goodness, ahankara interacts with the passion, ahankara interacts with the ignorance, right? With interaction, different elements are coming. Maybe that could what I am suspecting that the elements are some identical elements. It's like one is some sense elements, karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, like the different elements are like. That could be the in that context. It might be they might have used, but not sure if any other context is there. No, the Ananta is a Sankar, it's the same, it's a different name. Yeah. So, Prabhu, actually it is mentioned in Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitam, it was covered. Actually, these Chaturvihas produce different incarnations of Vishnu, like depending on the Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, right? With different positions, different incarnations of Vishnu come from these. And this second one is there, I think the first one also I remember. Total 24 incarnations come from these 4 Chaturvihas. So all these and that. Not only that, I think I remember correctly in some purport it was mentioned, these people will collect the different directions, 4 Chaturvihas, 4 directions kind of thing. Yes, false ego is ahankara. That is. Yeah, in the material world we have the false ego. That is called material ego. In the material world, everyone is having the false ego. We should have ego saying that we are not body, we are the soul. That is what actual our ego. But we are having the false ego saying that I am the body, I am the enjoyer. So that is a material ego, that is a false ego. That is because of ahankara. See, the Brahma, I think in a few weeks back, I think the Banu Maharaj or someone was saying, when somebody asked the question, Brahma is like an engineer, right? So before engineer doing something, people will be, the architects will be there, like they do many works and then they will give it to engineer. Engineer will start doing the things in the ground level. Like Brahma also, what is that? He creates the living entities. What he does, like he uses all these ingredients created by Vishnu, and right? So the Mahavishnu and all the ingredients, like different senses are created, right? With the interaction of the Mahatattva and all the whatever we discuss. Though he take the like when the Mahavishnu induced, they have the living entities are having karma and the impression, right? Based on that, Brahma create the living entities. He will ensure that these all elements he will create, and then the Kshirodakshaya Vishnu enters into that, and like based on the karma, and this is what Brahma does. This is a secondary creation. We remember in the sometime back in the 3rd canto, we read all the Brahma was creating Gandharvas, Kinnera, and the Yakshas, everything he was creating, right? That is what he creates all these living entities after everything setup is done. Like so, the basic setup is done. Like in our example I was giving, right? If you are sending your kid to school, you don't need to create the school. You don't need to create the teachers. Everything was done in the background. Then you are just giving the admission, going to the school. Same thing, the Vishnu, the Supreme Lord, did with various incarnations, he did all the setup. Now Brahma is utilizing those resources and creating. If you are like based on your karma, if you have to go to higher planets, he will put you in a higher planet. If you have to go in the hellish planets, you will be like you will be getting birth in the loin. So that is what all things were done. Secondary creation, that's where we saw. No, but the energy, because when we do the deity form, we do the prana prati. Actually, we invite with all the Vedic procedures. We invite Krishna. See, that's what. So on its own, it doesn't have. Under the influence of Krishna, under the material energy, it will have everything. Things will happen. So everything in this case, first thing the deity's case, we invite Krishna with all the Vedic procedures. Like they call prana pratishta something. We invite Krishna into the deity and then we do. But material energy or matter on its own is dull. But under the influence of Krishna, it will get the energy and transform. We see suppose we are the body. Body on its own is dull. Because we are the spirit, soul is there. Soul is there. But when the soul is having consciousness, with the soul, body is having consciousness. When the soul lives, body is dull, dead, right? So body on its own, it doesn't have any value if the soul is not present. So the same context you can apply. Designer of the human body. See, the Brahma is the secondary creator. See, all that's what I was mentioning. When Krishna was Mahavishnu and various incarnations, they do all the creating ingredients required. Then Brahma is the actually engineer. He creates the living. He is the creator, and he creates all the living entities using the resources. He is the main person, Brahma. See, Prabhu, you give them, there is no hard and fast rule. What I think is, keep Krishna in the center. Every example I tell you, you have to work. Since we going to the work, getting the salary, taking the money is and fulfilling your desires. It purely material, it looks. But in your consciousness, you work, you come to the temple, you do all the day nice things in the morning, you go to work, get the salary, you will get some money. Use the money to get the food items, whatever, and offer that to Krishna. And you construct a nice house, keep Krishna deities in the house, you worship daily, and you invite Vaishnavas into your house, feed the prasada, bhoga, and prasada to the Vaishnavas. Do all these activities, right? Both activities look same, but your consciousness is Krishna in the center. You are doing everything keeping Krishna in the center. You are doing same activities what other material people are doing. Only difference is your consciousness. That is a difference. You are doing everything. You don't need to stop anything. But your consciousness has to be, because ultimate source is Krishna. Krishna is giving everything. I have to use everything for the Krishna, for his pleasure. That is how we should. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. गौर भक्त वृंद की जय।